Hello everybody and welcome on 365Flix GroupChat. You know that you guys can be part of this. It's very easy. You just need to go on 365flix.com, buy or rent the film Attrition, and you can chat with Steven Seagal. How are you doing today?
Wonderful, brother. Wonderful. Everything is great.
Great. Thank you for being with us. Let's start with the questions. We have our first question from Alicia Whitefield. She is asking, "Hi Steven, I would like to know how did you come up with the ideas of your newest movie and how long did it take you to write it?"
I wrote the movie fairly quickly. I probably wrote it in 6 weeks. In terms of the idea, I really just kind of tried to put together a lot of the themes that I thought are so important in the martial arts, kung fu, all of the martial arts, in terms of people honoring their masters, honoring the tradition, how deep and spectacular the traditions are, from the healing to wanting to make the world a better place, to being able to protect the innocent, and fight for what's right. And I think those are all the concepts that I put into one movie as best as I could, and as I've said before, really trying to pull the heartstrings of the public and demonstrate how a real hero or a real warrior behaves. That's what I tried to do in this movie.
Dam Campo, you're quite an accomplished musician and guitarist who has collaborated with many well-known musicians. Who are some of your favorite musicians that you've been working with, and who would you like to work with in the future?
Well, unfortunately, most of the guys that I want to work with in the future have passed away. As you know, I'm a blues musician, and 99.999% of the great blues masters have died, and interestingly enough, they've died all at the same time. In the last 10 years, we lost them all. So there's a gentleman called Joe Bonamassa that is a wonderful guitar player, singer, musician. Love to work with him. And in the past, I enjoyed working with many of the greatest blues legends, from B.B. King on down. And there's just a whole list of the great legends that I worked with. Now we're all here all alone, just trying to do the best we can to carry on the blues. And I'm sure there will be new blues legends that are going to come up and take over and make us all proud.
Steven, what is your dream music project?
Dream music project?
Yes.
I guess to be able to work with a bunch of the superstars that are not necessarily, famous guys like Eric Clapton, but more famous guys like Vinnie Colaiuta and Abe Laboriel and David Lindley and, people who are brilliant musicians, and they're famous in their own right, Jeff Beck, guys like that. I just like to do an album with some of those superstars that are not just famous for being musicians, but they really are the greatest musicians in the field, in the world. So that's a kind of a dream, I guess.
One question from B1. A lot of people want to see you in The Expendable. Do you ever see it happening?
No.
That's very clear.
Yeah, this is not something I'm interested in any way, shape, or form. Never have been and probably never will be.
One question from Master the Dream. I don't normally pay extra for streaming movie, but I did for this one, and I'm very happy I did it. Money well spent. Well done, brother.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Mas Oyama. Steven, what do you think about martial arts training in the US law enforcement? Should it be a requirement?
Is Masayama speaking from the grave? Or is that his code name?
That's his code name.
Oh, okay. What do I think about martial arts and law enforcement? I think that as long as the police officers are ethical and moral, I think using martial arts is a great thing, and oftentimes can even help, subdue a situation without lethal force, which is, of course, the last thing we want most of the time. So I'm all for it as long as the police officers using it are ethical and moral people.
JM Big Kid 4, actually he has a few questions for you, Steven. Hey Steven, how did you get into acting?
Well, early on in my life, I was in America for a time, and at the time, Michael Ovitz and Terry Semmel was the head of Warner Brothers at the time, and Michael Ovitz was the head of an agency called CAA, and he sort of had heard about me. He was, I guess, a student of the martial arts. He wanted to see me. He saw me perform the martial arts. Terry Semmel asked me to come to Warner Brothers and do a demonstration. I came to Warner Brothers and did a demonstration. And I think, within a few days after that, Terry Semmel offered me 3 movies. He gave me 3 scripts. He said, pick one and let's do it. I read all 3 of them, and I had sort of come to America as a writer at the time. I was writing in Asia. And I didn't really like any of them too much. So I said to Terry Semmel, I said, these aren't the greatest stories for me. How about if I give you a great story? And I told it to Terry, and he said, I love that. He said, are you going to write it? I said, I'd love to write it. And he said, well, we have a writer's strike coming up. How about if I give you, someone else to work with so we can move fast? I said, great. He gave me Ronnie Shusett and Stephen Pressfield, who are both probably still alive. I think they wrote the original Total Recall. Great writers. And we wrote Above the Law, and I produced it, and we made the movie.
JM Big Kid 4 also wants to know if you still do any martial art training.
Of course. How could I do a movie like this without training every day? I train every day.
One question from Dida Deckers. Attrition was directed by Matthew Weschler. How was it to work with him?
I think he was a very nice gentleman, very reflective, very sensitive, very intelligent, and it was very nice working with him. I think he's a wonderful director.
One question from FilmNut1. Hi, Mr. Seagal. Your most personal films such as Attrition, The Patriot, not only deliver great action, but a thoughtful message. How important is it to you to give your audience something to contemplate as part of the film experience?
I think it's the most important thing. I think rather than just watching action, you always want to be able to have a story that's about something that people care about and really leads people into contemplation and makes them laugh and makes them cry and makes them think. I think this is the most important thing in filmmaking.
One question from Iceman720. How was your experience filming in Chicago for Above the Law?
It was a great experience. That's Andy Davis' hometown. He seems to know the turf very, very well. He knew a bunch of the crew, a bunch of the actors. I met a lot of great people, a lot of good friends. I made a lot of good friends there. And it was a great experience. Just a lot of hard work, but I thought we came up with a pretty good movie for the time and the budget, It was fun experience.
JM Big Kid 4 would like to know if you're working on some music at the moment.
Well, I have an album that's almost finished, and in fact, on that album, I have David Lindley, Vinnie Caliuta, Abel Boreal, a lot of these folks that I mentioned, Marty Greb, a lot of spectacular musicians, a bunch of great original songs, and I have to do some vocal overdubs and some guitar overdubs, and it will be finished. So as soon as I get the time, I'd probably do that.
One question from Lady Tiger Eye 74. Dear Steven, I really love the new movie Attrition. What was one of your most easier scenes to do, and which one was your hardest?
I think the fight in the herbal shop was the easiest and the hardest. It was the hardest in the sense that I wanted it to look like really, really beautiful, perfect Wing Chun Kung Fu. But I had great people, you know, in there helping me out in terms of, you know, who I was fighting with and stuff like that. The hardest stuff, or the hardest thing I ever did, was trying to set the tone in the beginning of the movie where I was really talking about where I had come from, the darkest, deepest, hardest world that I had just come from, and to be able to transfer that to the audience and let them know how anyone can rise up out of anything if they try hard enough.
I remember that scene where you fight under the rain. You spent so many hours under the rain.
Yeah.
That was not hard for you?
No, that was more of a simple fight.
Wow.
Yeah, the one in the herbal shop was much, much better for me, yeah.
One question from Dida Dakers. Can you tell something about your upcoming movie, General Commander, also to be released by 365Flix? What is it about?
Really, that's a movie about me putting together a team that's going to discombobulate, prosecute, or kill bad guys all over the world without anybody really knowing exactly where it's coming from. It's a piece where I have a lot of actors working with me, and I think it's really cool, very avant-garde, very new age, very, very different. I never did anything like that before, and I think it's a wonderful piece.
One question from Lady Tiger Eyes 74. Are you interested in any ideas for or a co-writer on Under Siege 3?
Well, I mean, I'd love to make Under Siege 3, whether I get to write it or someone else does or I'm co-writing it. I would love to make it. So if God is kind and willing, it'd be one of my greatest pleasures to be able to give me that blessing to make that movie under, you know, any circumstance in terms of who's funding and who's writing. I don't really care. I just love to make the movie.
Icemine720 is asking, what is your favorite fight scene that you did?
In my life?
It looks like it, yes.
There's a few, but I would say, once again, I think my favorite is probably the herbal shop in Attrition.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite.
And if you guys haven't seen it, please go and watch it because it's so beautiful.
I don't think that fights should... The one thing I have against Kung Fu theater is when even guys that I love and respect get out there and then they fight 50 people at once. These things are so unrealistic and boring. And then, you know, in Kung Fu theater, what I call Kung Fu theater is Kung Fu movies where they get into fights that last 10, 15 minutes. It's also very phony, very unrealistic. I like to make my fights much more realistic. So the fight in the herb shop is not a 10-minute fight, but it's how a fight would really be. Most fights wouldn't be much longer than that.
From Dida Akers, I think family is one of the most important thing in life. How was it to work with your wife on General Commander?
Well, family is the most important thing in the universe to me. You know, it's really, you know, the thing that we should all live for is our family and how we can serve each other and take care of each other. It was wonderful working with my wife, to answer that briefly. It was just really good.
Dida Akers, I run your official fan website stevenseagal.net. Have you ever heard of it, and what do you think of it?
I believe Philippe told me about it, and I'm really honored and thrilled, you know, that you're doing that, and I think it's fantastic. Thank you.
Dida Akers again. Is there a director you would like to work with in the future? Maybe for your new Kung Fu movie you were talking about in the last chat.
Well, if it's a Kung Fu movie, I'd love to work with Yuen Ping. I'd love to have him direct me. He'd be my #1 choice.
One question from Ronnie. Hi Steven, I really love your movies and I'm a great fan of yours. What impact do you think you have left on the action movie genre?
Well, action movies have changed tremendously in the last 30 years. And I was doing sort of mixed martial arts before they used the word mixed martial arts, because I started out studying karate and kung fu and then went into aikido, and I always mixed all of them. But at the same time, I also did pure aikido in the films, and I believe that I am the one that really made aikido famous in the world more than, you know, most people did. So I think there's a specific brand of martial arts that I brought to the cinema that is a little different from other people, and I think that that's something that most people would, you know, admit.
A question from JM Big Kid 4. How many guitars do you have? And do you have a favorite one?
I have probably a couple hundred guitars, and I have an amazing blues collection because I have guitars from Albert King, B.B. King, Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, John Lee Hooker, Lightnin' Hopkins, Albert Collins. I mean, just many, many great blues legends gave me their guitars, or I got them, you know, after they passed from family members and stuff. So, yeah, I got a lot of guitars still, and can I say which one is my favorite? It's kind of a cross between something from Albert King, a Flying V, 1958 Flying V, Corina, to Muddy Waters, Lake Placid Blue Telly. So those are kind of 50-50, which one I like the most.
A question from Dan Campo. Steven, as an accomplished guitarist, is there any guitar player out there right now that you've been listening to, or what music are you listening to nowadays?
Well, most of the music that I'm listening to, most of the music I'm listening to is by people who've passed away. There's a few guys that are alive that I listen to, one being Joe Bonamassa.
Question from More to This. My wife and I attended your performance at the Fillmore in San Francisco in 2006. Any plans to return to San Francisco in the future?
I mean, music leads you everywhere in the world, and music is something that brings all people together, no matter what their philosophies or religions or politics are. So it's one of the reasons why I love music so much, and I remember playing at the Fillmore. I also remember going to the Fillmore when I was a kid and listening to Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix and people like that. So the Fillmore was a kind of an experience for me. I hope you guys liked the show and hope to be able to get back there and play again sometime soon.
One question from Iceman720. Since a lot of guitarists prefer Strat or Les Paul, Do you prefer one or the other, or do you play them both?
I definitely play them both. I have Les Pauls, Gold Tops, and Stratocasters. Lots of both. I love them both dearly and play them both. They're both sound different and play different and would be good for different kinds of music and different kinds of songs. And that's why we have lots of guitars, to accommodate the different kinds of music we play.
Film Nut 1. It's great to hear another album is on the way. I loved songs from The Crystal Cave and on 3 different editions of Mojo Priest. I saw you play twice in the UK, including the presence of Youssef Islam. Any more European tour planned?
We get those offers and would love to do it again. And, we also have some offers in Asia. So I think the key is to just keep playing wherever it is in the world, and may God be with all the musicians who are trying to bring all people together with music, because it's a great mission.
Dida Akers, would you like to make a movie with Dolph? A team-up movie with the two of you would be great.
I mean, I met him a few times, very nice guy. This is not exactly what I'm looking for at the moment.
A pre-show. Is the Above the Law sequel that was rumored going forward?
I just really think that was a rumor. Once again, if somebody wants to put up the money to make Above the Law 2, I'd be the happiest guy around and I'd go make it, but I think that's just a rumor.
Film Nut 1. Your passion for music shines through many of your films, including this one. Are you developing any project similar to Fire Down Below that would throw even more emphasis on your talents as a musician?
I mean, as you know, in Attrition, I played a little bit in the end. None of the stuff that I am writing at the moment has music in it, but, would love to be able to come up with something to do that, because I always love getting, music in the movie, whoever it is.
Dida Daker, do you have a lot of influence on the post-production of your movie?
Usually I do, yeah. Usually I do. I sit in the post facilities and work on everything, usually. Yeah.
Dida Dakers, there was an article last week that you were supposed to start shooting a movie called The Professional in October. Is that true?
The Professional. Do you know anything about that?
I have no idea about that.
I'm sorry, I'm not. It doesn't ring a bell. Sorry.
More to this. How was your experience on working with Dutch director Roel Reen on Pistol Weapon?
Good. Very good guy, very intelligent guy. Really enjoyed working with him.
Dida Dakers, I think John Woo is a great director. He is great with action, but also has heart in his movie. Would you like to work with him?
Love to. I almost mentioned him. At the same time, I mentioned Yua Ping, but I don't know if John's working much anymore. But great guy, a little bit of a friend. He's got a producer called Terrence. They're probably still partners if they're working together still. If they're still making movies. I love him as a director, love him as a person, would love to work with him.
Lady Tiger Eyes 74. I'm in a wheelchair. Would you ever consider having a handicapped character in your movie?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a good idea. You just gave me a good idea, thank you.
Did you hear that? Thank you. Dida Dakers. You worked with Byron Mann a couple of times. How is it to work with him? You two get along well, right?
If I worked with him a couple of times, there's a reason for it. I think he's a very smart guy, good actor, good friend. I love Byron. He's a wonderful guy, and love to work with him even again. Wonderful guy.
Did you enjoy filming Exit Wounds?
Exit Wounds was not an enjoyable experience at all. And I don't know if I legally should come out and say why, but let me just put it this way. There were people acting on the movie that were having trouble with crack cocaine and showing up on time and walking through the movie, and it was not an enjoyable experience without going into any more detail. And it wasn't just, you know, one of the actors, it was also some of the people that were supposedly filmmakers and producers. Was not a pretty picture. Can I be honest?
Yeah, of course. You're here to be honest.
Yeah, so that's that.
Dida Dekers, what is the next thing you are up to? Is it a new movie or something else?
I mean, we are talking about a film fund out of China, and wherever the money comes from, we're just looking for money to make some of the scripts that are near and dear to us. I spend a lot of time in Japan, time in Russia, time in China. So we, you know, move around and meet people who are filmmakers and look at locations around the world, and you know, we're just excited to keep making movies.
Dida Dekers, I spoke with Philippe Martinez on the phone a couple of times a week ago about Attrition. How was it to work with him as a director on General Commander?
Very good. I mean, I didn't have to work a lot because we had so many other stars. But for the work I did, it was great. For the work that I had to do, it was very good. Excellent.
Well, thank you. This was Steven Seagal with you guys. So thank you very much, Steven Seagal, for being with us and spending time with your fans. I hope you're enjoying the experience.
Thank you all very much. Sayonara.
Thank you.
Thank you.